Well, this is Dr. Stan back here at Radio Liberty, coming to you from the hills overlooking beautiful and picturesque Monterey Bay and bringing you the news behind the news, the story behind the story, hoping to convince you that reality is usually scoffed at. Illusion is usually king. But in the battle for survival of Western civilization, it's going to be reality, not illusion or delusion, that's going to determine what the future will bring. And I need to remind you the views that are expressed here are not necessarily those of the owners, management, staff, sponsors, or supporters of the station you're listening to. They happen to be my views. And, well, for the next hour, they're going to be the views of a gentleman we've had on many times before, and I always enjoy having him on. Bob Fletcher really started out, never thinking he was going to get involved in studying conspiracies, but by actually a matter of circumstances put him into a very difficult position. He had lost a business that he had, and eventually, of course, he actually began researching so much of what's going on. And we carry a number of the DVDs that he's produced. Certainly, we have one on the Kennedy assassination. We have an excellent one on weather control and weather modification. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a reality. But, of course, you're not supposed to know that. You're not supposed to know that they can create storms and droughts and create terrible, terrible problems in our society. And then he has one on UFOs. And, of course, it's fascinating. You'll actually see a lot of pictures of these. He's done a tremendous amount of work at getting these film clips together and, of course, putting them together in a fascinating fashion. But tonight we're going to be talking about another of his DVDs we've never talked about before. Is it possible to electronically control people's minds? Is it possible electronically to plant ideas in people's minds? Well, that sounds pretty far out. Didn't you think it sounded pretty far out when you got started on it, Bob?
Yes, for sure. Can you hear me all right, Stan?
You're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, great. Well, yes, originally, as a matter of fact, it's kind of like so many of the investigations that I've gotten into in the last 25 years, and that was that when I heard of some of these things, I kind of had to take a careful look at it because I'm not easily believing everything that came across my desk, and I happen to be a real stickler on if I'm going to talk about something myself or if I'm going to include it into one of our investigations, that I have to have real good proof or real good documentation. And, of course, in a lot of cases, because a lot of these things are either top secret or in some cases above top secret, it's very difficult to get verifying information. And you even have to be, as you are aware, you have to even be careful of what appears to be good information. You sort of, let's say when you get your first questions answered, you have to kind of question the answers a second time and make sure that you really think that that whatever it is a believable situation.
Well, of course, none of this is believable because if this was going on, everybody would know about it. The only trouble is with the mass control of the media, why we're not hearing about it. As you say, it's secret or above top secret, and the last thing they want is for the American people to know what is really going on or these weapons that they have developed for mass control. So pick up the story there.
Well, first off, I was looking into, I was putting together a DVD originally in a VHS form. I was trying to do a good report on a whole handful of the exotic, unusual weapons that were had been underway. And, of course, they also tell us quite often that this is something that they're on the drawing board, planned for next year or planned for 10 years down the road, when, in fact, quite often it's stuff that's already finished and it's being used. But we were looking into some of the real interesting things, like lasers and microwaves.
Hold that thought. We'll be back in just a moment with Bob Fletcher. Okay, we're looking into lasers, and go ahead.
Well, you look into microwave weapons and the ability actually to have a laser with enough power that could actually destroy satellites, a couple hundred miles in outer space, and things of that sort, as well as some of the silly stuff that one might conceive to be silly or imagine would be silly, like some of the funny glues that they had developed. And there's a brand new one that they've developed where they can actually shoot a chemical at a vehicle, and it melts the tires and turns it into a gooey mess that then solidifies and will actually stick a vehicle to a road, actually stop it in its track. It's like having all four wheels turned into silly putty or something. And these are all fairly easy to track down, and these are all real. Another one of the items that was very bizarre, of course, is the invisible soldier. And basically, that is also a reality. And what the method, the primary method that they had developed, it's sort of like a blanket or a uniform or a blanket that actually photographically reproduces what might, let's say in the case of the soldier wears an outfit that will photograph the backside, whatever might be behind the soldier, and then transmit that a video, if you will, immediately to the front of the uniform, so that anyone looking at the soldier, let's say, that might be standing in a woods, they would see trees that actually are being photographed behind the soldier and transmitted visually to the front of the soldier's uniform, so therefore he would actually disappear, and all you would see would be trees and maybe sort of a misty, foggy kind of a visual thing. So actually you would have an invisible soldier. They've developed blanket material, that same fabric in a blanket form, that could be thrown over a tank, for example, and the tank would disappear, because you'd be looking through it, because you'd be seeing what was actually behind the tank. And so you actually have the ability to make soldiers, etc., and vehicles kind of invisible. But the one that you mentioned that turned out to be one of the most frightening, I think, all overall, and that is a
Hold that thought.
Right.
We'll be back in just a moment here with our rest of our stations. Well, this is Dr. Stan, and of course Bob has been describing some of the amazing weapons out there, laser weapons and other weapons, of course, that can create an invisible soldier. Sounds incredible, but certainly this technology is available. But certainly one of the most significant things that's been developed, and you pick up the story, Bob.
And that is a psychological, they call it a or a psychological operation to be applied primarily, well, actually can be applied for the battlefield. However, it can be applied politically, and it's very scary. It's called Commando Solo, Operation Commando Solo. And what this is, actually, it is an electronic, it's a C-130 aircraft loaded with high-tech electronic equipment. And basically what it does is, number one, first off, it has the ability to fly over an area, let's say a city or a town or whatever, or a community, and it can override electronically, it overrides AM radio, FM radio, high-frequency radio, and television and military communication transmissions. And it has the ability to override all of those in a given area. It then also has the ability, of course, by overriding it on the left hand, they can transmit their own programs out of this aircraft, which would be pre-programmed. The aircraft flies over an area, overrides the transmissions, and implants their own transmissions into that town, city, community, or whatever it might be. Then the coup de grace on this, so to speak, is that they can do subliminal replacements, little psychological, a third of a second transmission that is not even recognizable visually to a person watching. Let's say watching their TV or listening to a radio. They would not hear it, but they would subconsciously hear it, and they can, of course, do the subliminal planting of information into an entire community's mindset. And this operation, which I had heard about several years ago, and then, sure enough, a few years ago, I was able to get what is a live interview and a full coverage of this thing that was, for some crazy reason, I don't know why they did this, they actually permitted an entire television crew to go in and to record not only an interview with the commander of the operation, but go in and explain with the scientists, et cetera, the whole mechanism of this thing. And we were able to get that, and we put it and included it into the VHS and the DVD report that we have finished, which is called Exotic Weapons of Mass Control.
In fact, I just found out we do carry this. This is the only one of yours we haven't actually seen. Well, tell us what this commander said. Now, this was a Discovery Channel of the TV team.
Yeah, originally it was, and it was either, actually, I guess I'm thinking it was Discovery Channel, but it was one of those programs that actually periodically they do get in. I don't know how. I'll be honest with you. Between you and I, it's one of these slip-ups that that somehow for somebody thought it was a good idea to let somebody know about this. From their side of the fence, commonly this stuff is maintained in a very secret or top secret level.
Well, tell us what did the commander of this plane, plane loaded with electronic equipment, did he explain to the film crew that this was actually a means of mind control?
Completely, totally. They talked about it. It's two parts to the thing, actually. One is the commander himself. Actually, what we have is the footage on board the aircraft. We have actually flying a mission. We have the commander himself, and originally it was a fellow named Colonel Reed, R-E-E-D, and also they had the interview with one of the engineers or the designer of the concept, Dr. Persinger, who has been involved with the United States government in their psychological development of their psychological programs for many years. And the bottom line was that, and as you actually can see it on our in our DVD report, but he admitted they have flown over in a couple of places. One that they felt that they were bragging about was when we replaced and put, if I get the name correct, Razidi, and we put him back into government position.
Are you talking about Aristide?
Excuse me, Aristide.
Right.
And we placed him back into Haiti to take that country back again under his wing after we had thrown him out, which is kind of crazy. But the bottom line was that he was despised by the people, and they flew over with this C-130, flew over a few times, took the transmission over, planted the subliminal message to these people that they should love him and that he was a great hero, and it was a great opportunity for them to have him back again. And son of a gun, when they put him back into take over the country, the people were throwing flowers at his feet. They did the same thing, and this is admitted on the interview also. They did the same application in the first war. Remember when the Iraqis took over and they invaded Kuwait?
Right.
And the soldiers were out in the fields there, out in the fields in the desert, and they subliminally did this C-130 flyover a couple of days, and to the total amazement of our troops in there, the soldiers, the Iraqis, dropped their weapons and just came out and put their hands up, and they really we didn't even have any weapons there. We had some kind of an unarmed aircraft drone that was flying over, and they actually dropped to their knees, put their hands up over their head, and when the soldiers, the handful of soldiers, went up to them and asked them what they were doing, and they said, "Oh, we give up. We know you're our friends. We know you want to help us," and they were kissing their feet and doing all that goofy stuff. And the bottom line was that it was this commando solo operation. And now after that, they had such success with it that they have now, in the last few years, they've like tripled the numbers of these C-130s. Originally, there was only a couple of them. It was experimental. They've converted many of them, a good small fleet of them, so they have a good bunch of these in operation. They have used it in Desert Shield. They used it in the Desert Storm. They've deployed it in Saudi Arabia and in Turkey, and they've applied it many, many times. By the way, that was in '94 was when they did the Haiti operation. It was called Operation Uphold Democracy, when they put Aristide back into Haiti. They also used it, which is interesting, part of an experiment. They went into it was one of the countries in the Arabian area there. I'm not sure which one it was, and the Pope was coming to visit, and commonly they have to double up on the security, and they always worry about somebody going to take out the Pope. And instead, when they utilized the C-130 Commando Solo with this electronic brain twisting, they actually had the Arabs were throwing, and the huge numbers of these Muslims were throwing roses at the Pope and greeting him like he was in the middle of a major Catholic, like in the Catholic suburbs of New York City or something. It's a scary thing. What they've done, and again, is actually live on our interview that we have. The commander said that they have the ability to convince an entire community or a city or a town to vote in one way or another. And what happens is, after the election, if you go back in and interview these people, and they say, "Well, why did you vote for this guy when you threw him out last year?" They look at each other and they say, "Well, I don't know. We just kind of had a feeling like we should support him this time, where last year we threw him out, and this year we're voting for him." So it can be utilized that finitely in such a finite manner as to change people's ideas as to who they want to vote for. So it's very real. It's an amazing, scary program.
Well, Chris, how did you actually come upon this? Was it after you had actually gotten this?
Well, matter of fact, I had originally, I had a contact in the Pentagon, and I had received these, what really fall into some kind of a secret or quasi, I believe most of it's unclassified now. I don't know what it was when I got it, but there was some white papers that had come out of the Edwards Air Force Base, and they were, oh gosh, I was amazed. I had applied to get these, didn't expect to get it, and sure enough, they shipped me about, I think it was 25 books, about 1 inch thick, and it was nothing except brand new, planned and existing weapons. And it was this whole multitude of stuff, from including even small little micro things that actually can fly like a fly, and it's not much bigger than the end of your thumb, that can actually photograph and listen in on conversations. That was one of the amazing.
Hold that thought. We'll be back here in just a moment with Bob Fletcher. Well, Bob, go right ahead.
And anyhow, there were several of these, what I would call micro spy robots involved with this paperwork. and it fully describes them. There's drawings and sketches and everything else. It's really wonderful to get my hands on it. And in it also, it made a reference to the psych operations and the electronically rigged C-130s. And like I say, then we were able to get a hold of it in terms of get this interview with the commander, and it's amazing. And basically now this aircraft is, so you get a good idea, it's a C-130. This is like a basic military transport craft. It's built by Lockheed, and of course rigged up by whatever electronic wizards that they have working at the time. It cruises at about 335 miles an hour. It's a fairly slow, what you would call fairly slow aircraft. That flies only up about 25,000 feet elevation. They don't like to take them much higher than that. When they do the flyovers, they would only be maybe at an 8 or a 10,000 foot elevation. They drop out of the bottom, and again, all of this you actually can see on our DVD. But out of the bottom of the craft, they lower a huge, it kind of looks like a diving bell, and that includes the electronic equipment to do the transmitting. And like I say, the transmission ability is such that it'll completely overpower whatever is being transmitted. Radio, television, even military, and then they can put in whatever they want. So one thing, of course, they can, just do simple psychological transmissions, like the old Tokyo Rose, so to speak. But the big thing that's rather scary, of course, is the subliminal messaging that absolutely works. And on a television screen, it actually does like a half a second flash on the screen, and you couldn't even see it, if you videotaped it, you could not normally pick it up at all. But it sends out a message visually and audio that convinces you to do whatever they want you to do.
Now, basically what you're talking about is simply the old subliminal stimulation then.
That's right, except being now refined down to where it's so good and so serious that you can, as the commander said, convince an entire community to change their vote in an election. Of course, when I heard that and saw that, then right away, of course, I get thinking, all these different places here in America, who knows? Because we have no idea who's putting out, doing like quote-unquote little experimental flyovers. And, of course, we have no idea. And when you look at an election that comes and goes, and let's say you anticipate where everybody's planning to vote for person number one, and all of a sudden it turns out number two is the one that is the landslide, and then everybody they scratch their head, try to figure out what's going on. I would certainly hope that they're not already applying it in America, and of course, who knows?
Well, of course, the thing is, you talk about subliminal stimulation on the television screen, but how would you reach the minds of the Iraqi soldiers who surrendered during the first Gulf War?
It literally is a direct transmission. They flew over again.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Well, this is Dr. Stan, and we were simply talking with Bob about how this works. Well, of course, in areas where people are watching television, why they're able to insert into the television broadcast subliminal stimulation, subliminal ideology, and this really is very, very effective. I mean, you'll see it on the screen, but you won't remember it. I've seen examples of this, and certainly our friend Joe Simmel has given us examples of how these subliminal impressions, ideas can be programmed into our minds. And, of course, this is well known. Supposedly you're not supposed to use this in advertising, and yet I'm sure that they really do this today, and they think they can get away with it. Why? Because they want to be able to manipulate what we believe and certainly how we feel about things. Well, then I was asking Bob how they would have actually been able to control the minds of the Iraqi soldiers during the first Gulf War. And what were you saying there, Bob?
Well, in the situation of the soldiers in the military, everything that was transmitted into that area that they normally might listen to, and that included their own military transmissions, were totally overridden and replaced by pre-recorded transmissions that were planned to go in to replace it. So if you, for example, if you had soldier military radio, or if you had even communication out to the field soldier, the guys out there in the desert, from their commanders, and all of a sudden at 12 o'clock when the commander's supposed to contact them, it's somebody else that overrides and comes in and says, we've decided to give up this part of the desert, no longer support, don't try to defend this area any longer. You guys that are out there, turn yourself into whomever's there, the United Nations troops. They'll handle you properly, and don't worry about it. The arrangements have already been made. And these people are anticipating communication from their commanders on a specific broadcast line, and instead of getting that, they get this bogus transmission, which, of course, they don't know is bogus. And then, of course, the other part is that we don't know about, and that is if they've developed this sufficiently to actually fly over and just transmit it into your subconscious. I don't know if that's gotten that far in terms of development, but we do know that they completely override every other transmitting system in a given area, and they basically just say, hey, the United Nations has cut a deal with us, and da-da-da, and this is fine, or Hussein has decided to drop out. We're no longer going to pursue any farther here or there, and we recommend all forces within a certain area drop your weapons and give yourself up. Because what happened with this thing, because when this handful of soldiers, the first couple of hundred that did this, and reacted to the flyover of the Commander Solo, what happened was it surprised the handful of American soldiers. They couldn't figure out what was even going on. Instead of having a serious confrontation, they had 250 guys drop their weapons and came up out of their foxholes at 12:15 when in the middle of the day, and gave themselves up. And the soldiers were looking at each other. They couldn't figure out what was even going on there.
Now, I've heard our guest this evening is Bob Fletcher. He's talking about a DVD. It's two DVDs, and it's called The Exotic Weapons of Mass Control. Exotic Weapons of Mass Control. And if for anybody but Bob, I'd say that this is just too far out. But
of course, you get to see it. That's the best part is we've got, we just have the entire interview, and as a matter of fact, you can look it up, or anybody that's that happens to be computer buff. If you actually go on your computer, you can even Google it. If you go in for and it's Commando Solo. That's all you have to put down. You put Commando Solo C-130 or something like that, and you will be amazed because they cover there's a lot of stuff on the internet. But the big point is, of course, on the DVDs you actually can get on the airplane and have it explained to you by the scientists that put the thing together.
I think it's amazing. I find that we actually carry it. It's listed here in our list of things, so we have it in stock, and it's one of the few things we carry that I hadn't seen. I've seen all of Bob's other DVDs. They're excellent. Certainly, and he's working on one on the strange death of Sonny Bono, Congressman Sonny Bono. But his one on the Kennedy assassination, his DVD on weather modification, his DVD on
we have one on UFOs.
Hold on, we'll be right back here. Liberty. Bob has three DVDs, actually four that we carry. One is on the Kennedy assassination, one is on UFOs, and one on weather modification. And I also see we actually carry his exotic weapons of mass control. And of course, we carry it because we trust Bob and we think he does good work, and certainly he has been on the front lines of many of the major stories here through the years. And of course, he also is putting together a DVD on Sonny Bono. And when will that be available?
Hopefully, hopefully within a couple of weeks. We're trying to get it finished. I've been putting off because I was trying to get a little more documentation, actual physical documentation, and also we were holding off on getting some footage that I had been trying to get, and we finally have pretty much gathered up some of the things that we were hoping and been working so long to get, and we pretty much have everything we need. So it'll be a couple weeks and it'll be available. I'll sure let you know. Now, what is available that you folks that you guys have down there also is the DVD that I actually did as a report to Sonny Bono, and that was the one that I'm afraid may have actually gotten him killed, and it's called The Drugs, the CIA, and Government Corruption. And this report that I did for him shows many persons at very high levels of our government directly involved with drug smuggling and money laundering. And Sonny had finally, I did it for him, he had finally gotten opportunity to completely go over it, and had called me up, and they had said, in a couple of weeks, right after the holidays, we are going to be back. When we come back, it's the first thing on the calendar, and we're going to put together a major Congressional Intelligence Committee investigation. And it's going to follow everything that you've given us, and there's 4 or 5 specific elements in your report that we want to chase, and they just wanted to make sure that I was going to assist them and come on full-time to do what I could. And I said I would, and I said have a good holiday, and then 10 days later, Sonny was killed.
And I see we actually carry that one as well. It's called Drugs, the CIA, and Government Corruption, and it may very well have been the DVD of the information that got Sonny Bono killed. And believe me, ladies and gentlemen, we've not been told the truth on that or so many other things. We'll be back in a moment. Well, this is Dr. Stan. Our guest this evening is Bob Fletcher. And if you're out there in the listening audience, you have a question, our telephone number is 1-888-24-LIBERTY, 1-888-24-LIBERTY, or 464-8295. And certainly our guest this evening, Bob Fletcher, we're talking primarily about his DVD, Exotic Weapons of Mass Control, but we do have actually about 5 of his DVDs. I didn't realize we had that many, but we do, and of course we've seen 3 of them, and we're impressed by all 3 of those, and I think maybe this weekend we'll watch the Exotic Weapons of Mass Control, which has actually an interview with the commander of the
Commando Solo.
Commando Solo.
His name was Reed, Air Force officer general, whatever. And again, since we completed that, as a matter of fact, like I say, they have actually something like tripled or quadrupled the size of this program. And at this point in time, how good it is in terms of subliminal messaging and controlling of electronic airwaves, it's got to really be something, because they get better. Everyone knows how advanced their local computer becomes like every 2 months, and with the government's unlimited source of funding out of our pockets, they're able to really do some amazing development. I wanted to mention now some of the other, of course, I mentioned earlier that they have this invisible soldier concept, which also you visually absolutely will see that on the DVD as well. But some of the other more exciting parts of it, I guess, is a laser that we were able to develop that from actually the desert at White Sands Proving Grounds in the middle of the desert here in the United States. They were able to shoot about a 1-second impulse and hit an orbiting satellite and completely fry the electronics in about a half a second, 250 miles in outer space. And that also is something that you actually will see, and that's pretty amazing.
Have you ever heard of the Nautilus program? This is, of course, our either land or space-based laser program for bringing in incoming missiles, taking out incoming missiles.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not sure the name of that. I mean, to me, I'm not positive. This could be a branch off of or whatever of exactly what I was talking about, and that is a laser capability to basically what it does is it doesn't explode or to blow it up, but it will simply fry all the electronics so that a satellite no longer can be communicated with or controlled or send information, so it might as well be totally gone. And they have successfully done that. We shot one of our own satellites that had become obsolete, and they tested it on one of our own and totally burned up the electronics on it. Now, on there also we have great coverage of the stealth battleship that they've been designing for a couple of years.
Well, tell us about that. A stealth battleship?
Yes, and you also, again, you actually will see inside the ship and outside and get a full explanation of exactly what amounts to with it. That particular battleship was 165 feet long, and it is in the shape, the general design and shape, like the stealth aircraft. And so it's designed in a manner such that sonar and or radar at the level of the ocean, as if at ground level, the ship will deflect radar and sonar off the angularity of the design of the ship externally. It's also painted, of course, with a special coating, which again is similar to that of the stealth bomber. It actually looks like a floating stealth bomber. When you see it, you will actually see. You can see what I'm talking about. But and what happens basically at night, for example, if it's pitch black and you are out in the middle of the ocean, if you ran your sonar and your radar trying to track this huge 165-foot ship, you will not see it. It does not pick up on radar or sonar, period. It does exactly the same thing in the water that the aircraft, the bombers do now in the air, and that is to deflect the radar systems. So it's pretty interesting. It's pretty great. We, again, also have a complete inside and outside footage of that thing. And, where, as a sidebar, where I'm living right now in Idaho is a town called Bayview, and we have one of these huge lakes. It's like Lake Tahoe out here, but it's like an unlimited bottom on this thing. They're not sure how deep it is. It's at least 15 to 1,800 feet. And what they have here is a secret base that's so close to my house. As a matter of fact, if I go out on my back porch and throw a rock, I could probably hit the base. And they do here full-time design of the submarines originally, and that is the acoustic design to make submarines quiet. And they had functioned here for several years doing that. We actually have 1/3 size submarines in our backyard here. And they bring them in on flatbed trucks. They work undercover in the huge silos, huge buildings, and periodically we'll see them drag one of these ships out into our lake out here, and they'll go ahead and dive and do all the stuff that they have to do. And recently, By that I mean about 6 months ago, they've stopped doing the submarines. It's almost considered now, subs are considered to be antiques, and it's not a priority any longer to deal with subs. And they are now designing battleships right here that will also be extremely quiet. They have brand new design of engines. The engines and the motors of these ships are brand new, top secret design, and they're doing that actually in my backyard, which is totally a coincidence, but it's interesting. I have been able to tour the base there, and it's really interesting stuff.
Well, I think people have to understand that the United States spends more money on our defense than all the rest of the countries, every other country in the world combined. Now, why are we spending so much money on our defense? Well, my goodness, we've got to protect ourselves from the wicked communists, or maybe it's the wicked Osama bin Laden, or maybe it's the Chinese, or you have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that we financed communism since its inception. The best enemy money could buy. We financed communist China after bringing them to power back in 1949 by cutting off military supplies to the nationalist Chinese so the Chinese communists could take over that country, and we're doing everything we can to build up their military power and technology today, creating these enemies so that we can justify, of course, spending more money. But so many of these weapons, I fear, are not going to be used against a foreign enemy. I believe they're going to be used against the American people. Right now, we've developed all these satellites to spy on the communists, but since there's no more threat of communism, now they're going to use them for spying on the American people. Isn't that logical? There's no sense having them up there if we can't spy on somebody. And so we are using the satellites we designed to spy on the Russians that would actually allow you to read a newspaper from outer space. Now we can, of course, watch the American people just as readily. People find it difficult to believe this is really going on, but I fear that so much of this technology eventually, Bob, is going to be used against not the foreign enemy, but the people in America who cherish freedom.
I absolutely agree with you. And if you remember back in the mid-'90s, there was a lot of reports all over the place about the quote-unquote black helicopters that were supposedly flying around. They were typically harassing people in a lot of places in rural areas. They had these black helicopters were coming down and doing a whole variety of unusual maneuvers, and of course and there was no markings on them. And of course, when they reported them, they said, "Well, what was the markings?" And they said there wasn't any. And then they said, "Well, certainly there's no aircraft like that in the United States. You have to have numbers." And so they were making fun of anybody that actually reported these black stealth-type helicopters flying around in these different rural and residential areas. Well, we have the black helicopters, these stealth-type helicopters, also included in the Exotic Weapons DVD, and amazingly enough, they fly upside down, Stan. They have the ability with a helicopter to fly a complete barrel roll upside down, not losing control, and fly 65 to 70 miles an hour sideways without losing control. And they have full automatic computerized weapons on board where the computer on board does like 2 billion calculations in 3 seconds or something like that. So the computerization for the weapons is like something that you normally would think would have to be the size of a building or something. And now they have it on the helicopters, and we do have, again, this wonderful footage of this black helicopter flying sideways and upside down, actually doing a full rollover without losing control. So all of those people that were told they were nuts back there a few years ago, when they were seeing the prototype of this particular helicopter, they could get the DVD and show it to their friends and say, "See that? I wasn't crazy, because here's the pictures of it," and complete description, and et cetera, on also. It's just like the stealth bomber. It is a stealth helicopter with the ability to fly sideways and upside down.
Okay, so we actually have a 4-tape set on the black helicopters, and anybody, of course, who gets out of line, they will come and terrorize you with those. I know certainly Pat Matriciano, who put out the DVD, or I guess the story of the Clinton Chronicles back in 1994. Very embarrassing. The Clinton administration, he had a farm down in the valley, and of course they would send the helicopters out on a regular basis to intimidate them. One of our friends living over in Watsonville, who was very active and outspoken politically, and they sent the black helicopters there, with all the guns pointing out the sides and, looking like this big dragonfly, hovering right next to the house so we could look inside. And, of course, you can't bring a helicopter down that low legally, but, of course, these people are above the law. They're probably FEMA, CIA controlled, and they're there to intimidate and frighten. Our 4-tape set on black helicopters is something everybody should get, and certainly we're going to have to get people to be watching Bob Fletcher's excellent DVD going into the background of these exotic weapons. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, of course, certainly it sounds like you've got an awful lot. There's actually 2 DVDs in the set, aren't there?
It's really tedious. When you sit down to watch it, you have to just watch half an hour of it and then get back and watch another half an hour. It is so jam-packed with mind-boggling footage and information. You've got to do it that way, or you'll go crazy, because it is very tedious. Again, there's just so much, and it's one of those things that becomes overwhelming. So when you get it, though, you want to watch every inch of it, but do it in segments. Break it down for yourself, or you'll have a nervous breakdown watching all of it.
Well, that's the last thing we want our supporters to have, is a nervous breakdown.
Right.
And so much of the information that we have is incredible. Unfortunately, it's all true. So anyway, of course, what sort of response have you gotten from this? Has this moved fairly well?
Oh, yes, it really has. And as a matter of fact, it's probably one of the best. And we've done about 6 or 7 complete reports, and all on specific different, let's say, government corruption or things that we have to be aware of. And this is certainly one of the most popular ones. An awful lot of people have, as a matter of fact, all over the world, Stan. We've placed this, been moving it all over the world. It includes all kinds of stuff: micro diseases, micro spies. I said these little tiny things, robots, bionics. Some of the new, actually, where they're working on eyes, that they can replace a person's eye, that would have the ability to read infrared into actually a person's eye, and et cetera. It's covered with some of the most amazing developments of weapons that you could ever imagine.
How did you get all the information? How did you get the shots on
well,
them? People feed them to you from the military or what?
Well, I get it from an awful lot of directions, and it's very tedious, even with the one that we're just finishing now on Sonny Bono's situation. I get a little bit from here and a little bit from there. We got stuff out of the Pentagon. We got stuff from friends of ours in the military. We got some regular stuff. We go down. Some of the most amazing things, I've been able to go to the library. And if you know what to look for and where to look for it, you can come up with some amazing information. But it's full-time, and it takes a couple of people doing it full-time. And all of mine, I've ended up spending thousands of hours and thousands of dollars to put together all of the DVDs that we've done and the reports. They're very tedious, and commonly, again, I try to be careful. I will not talk about something that I can't prove. If I can show you the pictures and show you the videos, then and show you the paperwork, well, then that's it, and that's good enough for us.
Well, do you have a website?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Folks can reach us if they want to get a copy of our catalog or ask a question or whatever. They can email me at news, N-E-W-S, at, the little insignia for at, bobfletcher.info. So it's news@bobfletcher.info.
Well, I know my wife, we were having dinner tonight. She asked who I was going to interview, and I mentioned you, and she was commenting how well your DVDs are moving to our ministry. So this is encouraging. It's encouraging for us, but it's encouraging to me to know that people want to get the information that you have. And certainly we pretty well stand behind the various guests that we have, the various DVDs that we put on, and excellent material. Information every American needs to know. You're not going to get it through the regular news channels. You're not going to get it certainly from the major news magazines, publishers, because the people who own those 5 major corporations have largely determined what the American people hear, what they read, what they see, and ultimately what they believe. We'll be back in just a moment here to wrap up the program with Bob Fletcher. Well, Bob, you got 3 minutes to wrap up the program.
Well, we again, I just do the same as you've done, and that is put out the invitation of folks to get the information, get the DVDs, the things that may be of interest to you, and it's like you said, Stan, it's material that you're not going to get anyplace else, and what we put out is stands on its own. You know, like I say, you see the commanders doing their own description of how crazy these weapons are and what they can do with them. And you have to really educate yourself the best you can. It's your only defense against any government that might go astray if the people do not arm themselves with knowledge and education. We're going to end up on the losing end of it. And I greatly appreciate being on your show. I'm glad to be back any old time. We talk about some other interesting subject, and as soon as we get the Sonny Bono DVD completed, I will let you know. And that also, by the way, will be very, very complete, and it's taken me a long time to get the information I had to put this together. And I'm afraid it'll be a little bit upsetting because the bottom line is somebody in the powers to be murdered Congressman Bono.
But of course they've murdered so many people, whether it be Jack Kennedy, whether it be Martin Luther King, and incidentally we do have a new 4-tape set on that, and a book on the murder, based upon the trial that was held by the King, Martin Luther King's family, to try to demonstrate that the government was behind it. The jury found the government was behind it, and not a word in the controlled media. Well, I guess this evening has been Bob Fletcher, and we've been talking about his DVD, Exotic Weapons and Mass Control. Actually, it's 2 DVDs. It's not one. It's got so much information in it. And
4 hours.
4 hours. And, of course, the thing is that what is our best weapon? Our best weapon is the truth. And Bob has great information. The reason, of course, we present you and offer you his DVDs is because we trust him. He's done a lot of work. He's made an awful lot of personal sacrifices of his own health. But, you know, one of the people who values America, values freedom. And I hope those of you out in the listening audience appreciate the hard work that Bob has done. And you'll want to get his work. And then, of course, you'll want to get this into as many hands as possible. Bob, thanks very much for being with us. We'll give you a call and get you on some of our other programs real soon.
Good. Stan, thanks a lot. Good evening.
Good night. God bless. And, of course, that was Bob Fletcher, and we're talking about the DVD, Exotic Weapons of Mass Control. Well, this is Arthur Stan, and of course this is the time when I need to mention to Radio Liberty is primarily listener-supported, and if you're out there in the listening audience, we hope that many of you will give serious consideration to joining the Radio Liberty family of supporters. And, of course, you can do that simply by calling 1-800-544-8927. 1-800-544-8927. If you'd like more information on the DVDs we were talking about tonight, the first one was Exotic Weapons of Mass Control by Bob Fletcher. That is actually 2 DVDs. And then, of course, his other DVD entitled Drug, CIA, and Government Corruption, which is the DVD he gave to Sonny Bono shortly before Sonny Bono died. And then, of course, we have Bob's DVD on weather control, on the assassination of President Kennedy, and then, of course, is and one other DVD that of his that we think are so important that people would want to get. And just give us a call at 1-800-544-8927 if you'd like to get one of our catalogs. They are available on CD, or we'll be glad to send you a printed catalog on our regular publications on health matters and all the books on health that we have, and then of course the emergency food catalog. If you have not yet laid in your supply of emergency food or of health products, you need to get them, and you need to get them quickly. It's only within the last week we've suddenly found shortages of rice developing in America, and believe me, this is just a prelude to many other shortages that are going to come about. We have an excellent DVD on, 4-tape set on black helicopters. We have, of course, a book on mind control and another book on mass control. They were actually written by Jim Keith before his mysterious death, which was subsequently followed within a few weeks by the mysterious death of his publisher, which was followed in a few weeks by the mysterious death of his ex-wife. Isn't that a coincidence? All three of them died in such a short period of time. But we do have a couple of Jim Keith's books, Mind Control, Mass Control. I think we probably still have his book, dealing with with the Oklahoma City bombing. No, we don't have that one. My producers are telling me that that one, the OK Bomb, is no longer available. That's too bad, because there he talks about, of course, Jennifer McVeigh, Tim's sister, having gotten a letter from Tim telling her that he was actually working for a special forces team that was involved in illegal activity. Of course, Tim McVeigh told the same thing to Terry Nichols. He told the same thing to his one of the people in prison with him. And, of course, the prisoner wrote a book called A Secret Worth Dying For. And all of the same story. Tim McVeigh was part of a special forces team involved in illegal activity. And of course, we can surmise that they were certainly behind the bombing of the Murrah building. Why? Because, of course, they wanted to get all sorts of new legislation passed, of course, to take away the freedom from the American people. And you had to make everybody believe that Timothy McVeigh, driving a Ryder truck, was able to produce the explosion that took down the Murrah building. And there's no way it could have happened the way we've been told. And they've lied to us into this very day. The FBI refuses to release the videotapes that were taken on the day of the destruction of the Murrah building, because there's an ongoing investigation. They won't tell what the ongoing investigation is, because they don't want to let Osama bin Laden or the terrorists or the Aryan nation or maybe the American people. They don't want them to know what really happened that terrible day. Our telephone number is 1-800-544-8927. 1-800-544-8927. Our webpage is RadioLiberty.com. RadioLiberty.com. We hope you'll go there. You can watch our DVDs free. You can read our newsletters free. You can listen to our programs there 3 hours a day live. And, of course, you can listen to our archive programs. You can listen to our other programs there. And, of course, we ask you then to pray for America, to pray for revival, but please pray for Radio Liberty, for our provision, and for our protection.
You're tuned to the Global Star Radio Network. Thanks for listening.